Now that we've got our Q-SYS Reflect app for ServiceNow installed and configured, one of the more powerful parts of ServiceNow is to be able to create reports and dashboards. We're going to walk through today using our Q-SYS Cores section of our Q-SYS Reflect app for ServiceNow and visualize some of that data that's available by showing how many Q-SYS Cores might be offline, either by like a site name or a firmware version or the core model. To do that, we're going to start by going up to the All menu and searching for Reports. Once we go to Reports, we're going to go ahead down to Create New. This Create New option should pop up creating your first report here for ServiceNow. There's some initial information we need to put in here. So let's say we're going to start by number of cores offline by site. This will be our default report. We can also then choose what our source is going to be, which is going to be a table, because in our Q-SYS Reflect app, every section is in its own unique table. And then we're going to need to select that table. With all QSC tables, they start with X_QSC, and then we should get a list here of all those available tables. We're going to choose the cores table. Once we've done that, we can go ahead and select the next button at the bottom. And then we can choose the report visualization type. There's a lot of different options here that we can use, and you can play around with different ones as well as review ServiceNow's technical documentation on which type of visualization is best for your needs. In our example here, we're going to choose the pies and donuts section in the donut visualization to view our data. We can then click the next button down at the bottom. You can see here on the left we have a bunch of configuration options which we can use to tailor this view to how we want the data to look. We can also see here that if we mouse over this, it's showing the number of cores offline by site is equal to 30. If we swap over here to our cores table view, we can see that there are some cores that are running, there are some offline, but it's not 30. 30 is the total record count in this table. So we need to filter this data back down to the actual number of cores offline. We can do that by using the condition builder filter up here. Select that, and let's choose the status message as how we want to filter this data. And we're going to choose status messages offline. We can now click the refresh button up here to run the report and refresh it. We can now see that 15 is the number of Q-SYS cores offline. We're also going to choose how we want to group this data. So by default, we want to choose by site. So we can group this data up here at the top by selecting this menu and choosing what we want to use to group this data together. So if we choose site and click refresh, we can now see that the data is grouped by site, and we have, for example, 7 systems offline in our partner system site. The other helpful thing would be the ability to change the grouping for this report on the fly. So there's an option for us to change and add additional filters by using this additional group by option here. We can select that up here at the top, and maybe we want to be able to group it by what firmware versions these are running, or what model of the Q-SYS core is offline. We can go ahead and select that. Now when we do that and refresh, you'll see down here at the bottom, it's going to default to site, but we can now choose by firmware model. And now it's going to show us, which firmwares are the most offline. We can then choose a model, which Q-SYS core model is offline. Just helping us to visualize the data differently and use the same report for multiple views. The last step to tailoring this data to look how we want is to just change some visual style options. We can, for example, display the data table that this data is coming from. If we click refresh here, we can see now that it includes a table at the bottom to let you know visually more of what the actual information is without having to hover over. We can also click the next button here and change, how big it is, show or hide the legend. After you change these functionalities, you do have to click refresh. So for example, there we got rid of the legend. We might want the legend in this scenario. We can also change the title of the report or change where the position of the text and text information is. Now we can go ahead and save this report by using the Save button in the upper right-hand corner. And this now can be used for exporting it to a PDF later, inserting it in a dashboard, which we'll cover in another video, or being emailed to a group of users.